Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17, Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips a balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, so this is from Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, established 1959, year 2021, investigation of child physical abuse and neglect, child sexual abuse and exploitation, California Commission on Post. So if I'm correct, this is the most up-to-date, which I'll vet that out after I talk about this. And then I'm going to cover the procedure for the initial investigative officer. So I have to scroll. Give me a second here. Okay, this is guideline 4, first responding officer responsibilities. Again, pertaining to child abuse. And I am going to comment on some of this. The primary responsibility of the first responding officer is the safety of the involved children. The first officer on the scene should assess the risk to each child involved and determine what action should be taken. Also, I want to add in, these officers need to be trained specifically for this. Can't just be anybody. I mean, maybe if it's late, it's 3 a.m. or whatever, you could take the initial, but the specialists need to be called in, which may include taking the child into protective custody. Taking the child into protective custody. How many Scientology children have been taken into protective custody since the 1950s in Los Angeles, California? Inquiring minds want to know, how many children from Scientology have been taken into protective custody? Inquiring minds want to know. The public demands more accountability and transparency in knowing how many children have been taken into protective custody that were Scientologist children, having their wills taken away and being heinously abused. Law enforcement officers responding to reports of possible child abuse must be aware that both child welfare and law enforcement share statutorily mandated roles. Mandated roles in the investigation of allegations of child abuse means they need to call CPS. Serious child neglect and exposure to serious domestic violence as addressed in these guidelines. I'm not an expert in these things, but I know when a child says they're trying to kill me, that's a serious accusation, and nobody needs to take that one lightly, nor minimize it. Because if one does, it may happen in the future that that child unalives themselves. And officers, you need to get familiar with the YouTube coded language. It's just how it is nowadays. Unfortunately. It is alpha. It is the responsibility of law enforcement personnel receiving the initial report to 1. Conduct a preliminary assessment of the risk to the children involved. 2. Gather the pertinent facts: who, what, where, when, how, and why. A. This may usually be accomplished by conducting a minimal facts interview. I'm going to click on that. Let's see if it takes us somewhere. Okay, I'm not going to read that. Give me a minute here. I paused it, yet I was talking to myself. I'm not going to read that minimal facts interview, but you guys can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to cover a few, the basics here because I have somewhere I need to be. And then I'm going to come back later I'm going to do a whole series. And within the playlist that I create, it's going to be either I'm going to put it in the Attention LAPD playlist. I think I may put it there, or I might create a new playlist. Because apparently there are procedures and policies, statutes and laws that cover child abuse and how to handle it properly. B, generally the first responding officers need only gain sufficient information to determine, 1, if a crime has been committed and the jurisdiction. So that's important too. And I'm not going to direct my comments at officers as if I know exactly how to do this, but this part I know is important. So if you're going to minimize and try to downplay that a crime has been committed, right there, I'm smart enough to know that that's aiding and abetting in covering up crimes. So you should just be careful if you're a dirty cop. That's all I'm saying. And I am not saying that all police are dirty. Please understand that. When I see children being abused and nothing is being done about it, when there should be something done about it, I get upset. And you as police officers, no matter where you're at, should be upset as well. 3, cross-report and coordinate response with other involved agencies as appropriate. That would mean Child Protective Services, social workers, gather a rape kit if necessary, especially if the young girl is pregnant. Gathering the physical evidence can help support the case in the future, which I'm sure you all know that. Now, if you're refusing to gather physical evidence, that again, in my opinion, can be construed as 1, covering up crimes, 2, aiding and abetting in covering up crimes. Facts. B is in Bravo. Treat the scene as a crime scene even if the abuse occurred in the past. 1, secure the crime scenes and obtain a search warrant if necessary before seizing any items of evidence. Now, LAPD, I would like to ask you, how are you able to seize evidence or secure the crime scene when Scientology acts as if they're your boss, telling you that you can't come into their buildings? I just want to make it clear to you, police officers, you guys are the boss. You supersede Scientology, and they need to get the message. They need to get the memo. Citizens will support you if you do the right thing. We know they fair game. They need to understand that you are more powerful than they are. Time to man up, woman up. B is in Bravo. Wait, did I read this one? Oh yeah, I did. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. So I'm going to read one again just so we don't get, off topic. 1, secure the crime scenes and obtain a search warrant if necessary. I would that be like pretty regular to do that? Before seizing any items of evidence. A, err on the side of caution. If the suspect, like a stepfather that was just accused of trying to kill his child, I would say you need to separate them. You don't keep them together. If the suspect may have any standing to object to the search of the scene, get a search warrant. B as in Bravo. Consent can easily be withdrawn. What about, I would really like to ask the Inspector General. What happens when individuals of a, alleged church, like Scientology, are not giving consent to search? What happens then, IG, Inspector General? Inquiring minds do want to know. C as in Charlie. Coercion can be alleged later by the suspect, often called perpetrators. So if you're buddying up with perpetrators, it's a really bad look, LAPD. It really is. 2, secure the instrument of abuse or other corroborative evidence that the child identifies at the scene. 3, photograph the scene in detail from all angles of each room. And of course, wherever the crime took place. When it comes to child abuse, there's no time to be lazy and just sit in your desk, like what had happened to Pinche Becky. Yeah, what happened to Pinche Becky? Yeah, that was pretty awful. 5, Fife. Re-photograph injuries as needed to capture any changes in their appearance. So that means if you have a female that was sexually abused or physically abused, you would have a female officer. If it's a male child that was abused, you would have a male officer. Unless for some strange reason they request opposite, if in fact they're perpetrators of the same sex and maybe that makes them uncomfortable. That would have to be at you guys' discretion, of course. Maybe have a male and a female, in a case like that. C as in Charlie. Assessment of the child may include observing and photographing the scene and child as appropriate, collecting and preserving evidence, and interviewing the following. I would imagine there's specialists in the LAPD that work only with this. They're familiar. There's a certain way of doing things. That's what I would think. 1, reporting party. In the case that I witnessed the other day on YouTube with the child, now this is the secondhand accounts that I'm thinking of, so I wasn't there. But I would say the reporting party was the 2 girls that were under the age of 18, which means they're minors. All witnesses. So the officers that didn't want to hear Scotty, I don't know how to say his last name, Scotty's testimony, they didn't want to hear Kelly's testimony, they didn't want to hear, whom else was there? Matt from Multimedia. All of them were witnesses. So if for some reason in this case there's no witness statements by them, in my opinion, from what I've learned, that would say to me improperly following procedures. It would also tell me dereliction of duty. It would also tell me aiding and abetting in crimes. It's my opinion. 3, victims through an initial first responding officer, minimal facts. So we went over that. You guys can look at that later. All witnesses, wait here. Okay, 4, victim interview, see guideline 7. I'll go over that later. Siblings, well in this case, there were 2 siblings that were abused. Allegedly, what was being stated was there was, how do you say that? When a married couple is separated and you have partial custody, like some kind of a custody arrangement. But from what I was hearing, so I guess that's hearsay, but what I was hearing was the father or the stepfather, I'm not sure yet, the male who was abusing these girls was trying to kidnap them. That's what it sounds like to me. So I would hate to think that LAPD officers are aiding and abetting in kidnapping of children. That would be a bad, bad look. This is my opinion. It is free to have an opinion in America, in the United States of America. Physical evidence from a sexual abuse victim's body will be collected only by medical personnel during a medical examination. Well, how about that? If you're denying the victim, the child, who's been abused, a medical exam, you're not following proper procedure. That's dereliction of duty. It could, again, I don't want to keep repeating myself, could be aiding and abetting. And there's other things that follows. Maybe not, it could be falsifying reports if you're not telling the truth on those reports. If that victim needed medical care and you put in your report that they denied it, they didn't want it, that's lying, that's falsifying a police report. Could be a bad situation. Falsifying police reports is detrimental. So I'm going to hurry up through this. I got something coming up here. The D is in Delta. The officer should seek to identify the suspects and take appropriate action. E is in Echo. The first responding officer should ensure that all appropriate notifications required by law are made. I would say some of the people listening, maybe if you can check this out. Number 1, completion of the suspected child abuse report from S Sierra 8572 within 36 hours. Of course it's 36. You guys know why it's 36. 666. You know where we're at. 2, immediate phone, fax, or electronic notification to CPS. How about that? Or CWS. I'm thinking maybe that's Child Welfare Society. 3, forwarding the complete Sierra 8572 to CPS/CWS, the district attorney's office, and any other required agencies. F is in, I'm going to say Frank, I forgot the military one. Complete the preliminary investigative report, which should contain the necessary documentation to include 1, all statements, 2, observations, 3, physical evidence, 4, actions taken by the investigating officer and others, 5, the existence of photographic, audio, or video recordings. That would include the live streamers, evidence. G is in Gulag. Every law enforcement officer should be aware of the fact that the actions taken during the preliminary investigation, coupled with the quality of the initial police report, will have a crucial bearing on the protection of the children. Crucial bearing on the protection of the children and the successful resolution of the case. H is in hotel. Hotel. The investigator should be aware that defense strategies may focus on the following. 1, the interview of victim. Yeah, you better watch that. 2, the victims themselves. 3, the officer investigator. Yeah, we need the serial number of those officers involved. 4, the victim's family. Well, they're the perpetrators. Some of them are the perpetrators. 5, the investigation itself. 6, the medical versus non-medical case. I as an igloo, provide a Marcy's card to the victim. Yeah, that's kind of lame. Go look at it. This is lame. Lame. And to the victim's parents or guardians. What I keep telling you guys about guardianship. Okay, I gotta go. I'm gonna continue this later. Peace. Link in the description.